Hey everybody, this is Bo back in the Sports Lounge. We're going to get Oakland Press's superstar Marvin Goodwin back on. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Bo?
We're doing actually excellent. In the last couple of weeks, we've had Jackie Kalin on, who's a huge fan, Pinklin Thomas, which is a huge fan, Al Mitchell, which is a huge fan, and Jeff Cheney out at Grand Rapids Press. You have a bunch of fans stretching all over this country.
Yeah, just keep them rolling.
The one thing we draw from a lot of stuff is our eyes right now are focused on mixed martial arts. But there seems like there's an underlying message going on right now in all of that sport. Boxing is slowly making a sort of a recovery. There's a lot of traditional fight fans that now have money that are investing into little projects all over the state of Michigan. And right now in Grand Rapids, there's a whole bunch going on with Fifth Third Bank, with the guy who owns the Ice Caps, Jeff Cheney, and it's picking up national attention. Do you think this wave of boxing and the interest in boxing is going to really create a revolution for that sport?
Well, I hope so. You know, it's a shame that boxing has kind of gone into a slump period. You know, because there's a lot of talent around, but it just has to be honed, it has to be cultured, and it's just hopefully it can have some type of resurgence in the sport, because I think it still has a lot to offer.
Right now in the landscape, all eyes are focused on the big deals of the MMA, and there's a lot to say about it. Brock Lesnar looks like he's for real. He's a beast. Granted, his showboating wasn't exactly the best representation of the sport, but you got to remember, the guy is who he is. He was like that when he was a college wrestler. He was certainly like that at the professional ranks of professional wrestling, where he fell into the bad guy role. In mixed martial arts, he is the real deal. So there's a lot I think boxing can draw from those sports, is that how they're set up, and I think promoters are bringing that to this area.
Well, they're going to do their best. Brock Lesnar, the way he came off in this last fight, that kind of turned a lot of people off. But I don't see it as any different from any other sport. You know, when you have pro wrestling or pro boxing, there's a lot of bravado, there's a lot of trash talking and things like that. And like it or not, that's what helps sell the sport, because these are the things that brings attention to the sport. So I had no problem with whatever he did during that last bout he had.
Yeah, he was showboating a little bit, but to be honest with you, that's his personality. And for him to come out and try to be all nice and all humble is not Brock's personality. And the sport is, I know MMA is real popular, but you can see the numbers where it's stagnating just a little bit. When Brock came out and fought, it seemed like it ignited the whole thing, and controversy always breeds the eyes of attention of the public, as you know. I mean, every time Mayweather opens, I like Mayweather personally. I'm not a big fan of his boxing style, but I do personally like him. And how he comes out and talks, I really think the sport needs more fighters like that to showboat a little bit, because he can definitely back it up.
Yeah, and this is true for almost every sport. There's I guess a love-hate relationship, when you have that type of activity in the sport. A lot of bravado talking, a lot of I'm this and I'm that, and that just basically brings attention to the sport, and that brings in the realm of persons that are not sports fans but are interested to see, what is this guy going to say next, or what is this guy going to do next, even if they're not sports fans. So that's something that really helps sell the sports, and all sports, actually.
You're absolutely right. And I think the one thing that a lot of us fans miss is that most of these fighters are usually pretty tight, and it's a show. They're trying to hype the fight to make it more interesting and more storylines. I think we saw that with Tyson, when Tyson finally lost to Lennox Lewis after he said he was going to eat his kids. Yeah. He was very humble after that fight, and you saw more and more of the fact that there really are, these guys promote themselves years ago very, very well. And reality is there probably not that much hate between the fighters or the wrestlers.
Oh, absolutely. This is the fighters are in it to sell the fight, to get as many people to watch it as can be. But the bottom line is that most fighters, in fact, practically all of them, they all have a mutual respect for their opponents, because they all know how much work they put into the sport, how much sacrifice they make, and they all can relate to that. And after they fight, or they have their confrontations, there's always a mutual respect. You always see after a boxing match, you see these guys shaking hands after they beat each other to death halfway, and they shake hands, they acknowledge a good job, and that's almost in all the case for fighters. So there's no real animosity between a lot of them. That's just a way to sell fights, the way to get more people to watch, and that's the way it is.
And I think as fans, as we get older, we realize that when we're younger, we're watching Hagler fight the Beast Mugambi, and there was trash talk, and Tommy Hearns was calling Hagler a bald-headed midget, and
Right.
Leonard, and you realize when they got over, there's a real interest. You saw that with Boom Boom Mancini after his fight with Kim, where he knew something was up. When you saw him in the ring, he was going over. When he found out, he was devastated because,
Yeah.
you go out to beat the guy's brains out. You literally don't go out to really hurt the fighter. You hope that it doesn't happen, and that we saw that with Boom Boom Mancini, where he never ever recovered from that. He mentally was destroyed for the fact that someone died at his hands, and that's not what boxing was about for him.
Yeah, that can really affect the psyche of a fighter when something like that happens. And just like you said, they don't really intend to maim or hurt an individual. Their appointed goal is just trying to defeat their opponent. And sometimes it can get a lot out of hand. And this is one of the unfortunate things about the sport. But that's the sacrifice, and that's the reality of a sport that's so violent as boxing. All the participants know what they're getting into when they step in the ring, and all of them know that they're taking a chance, and they're actually putting their life in their hands when they get to the ring. And they realize that, and there's nothing else you can do.
And I think every sport has the elements. People overlook the fact they always look at boxing and mixed martial arts as being violent because of the nature of it, and not really understanding some of the art form and the sweet science of how they do what they do. But football always has injuries and deaths going on, whether it's training or hitting or life-crippling injuries. Basketball, heart attacks take place. Hockey, jaws get shattered. In every
Yes.
sport, there's a level of danger, and a lot of sports fans don't look at it that way in those other sports because they're, outwardly they're not all that violent. Where in boxing and mixed martial arts it is. But we're going to change topics real quickly and have you talk a little bit. You're always showing up all around the area, covering wrestling and a lot of sports in the wintertime. What are kind of the hot places right now that you're seeing in those sports that you're going to be covering, so we can pick up the newspaper and follow it?
Well, right now we're sort of like in a down period, so to speak. Everybody's basically on vacation and stuff, but there are things going around. Like a couple of weeks ago, I was at let's see here, a velodrome out in Rochester. They had cycling races. The speed cycling around the tracks and stuff. This is the Olympic type sport. They had that last week. That was pretty exciting. They had a number of competitors from around the country came to the velodrome to compete, and this is sort of like a stage, I guess a stepping stone to try and compete in races in Europe, where cycling is very popular, a lot more popular in Europe than it is here. So there's a goal that a lot of cyclists here want to do, and that's to kind of go over to Europe and do the I guess this is the speed track cycling, or not like the Tour de France, but this is sort of like short races, but they're going like 50 or 60 laps, but it's still like a sprint to them rather than like the Tour de France type things. And then about a month ago, I was out at the Waterford Hills racing track. Now I think every month they have competitive races out here. And these are races where guys that have families and have regular jobs, they go here on weekends, and they got their own race cars. They